So the One Piece live action is out, and they actually made a good anime adaptation. Credit to Matt Owens and the entire team because they did a fantastic job. So let's talk about it and my thoughts on it. So let's talk about the positives. The characters are all well written, all fantastic. Inaki played probably the best version of Luffy we could have possibly hoped for. There's no way we were gonna get a 1-to-1, and if we got a 1-to-1, I don't think it was gonna work out. But something about at first I wasn't so. Inaki was one of those characters that I wasn't so sure if, or people that I wasn't so sure, because Luffy's a very tricky character to write. He's like naive, goofy, but can be serious at times. It's very tricky to get in. I think Inaki nailed this version of Luffy. But other characters are really good. Nami, Emily Rudd, portrayed a fantastic Nami, being the main emotional character throughout the entire story, and she played Nami really nicely. Zoro played perfectly. Actually, I think Zoro is probably the funniest character in the actual story. It's just because he's very stoic and serious all the time. A lot of dynamics get bounced back onto him, and he just cuts it off with his seriousness. I mean, they also portrayed him pretty well. I mean, chapter 1, we saw Minority Hunter Zoro come back and kill Mr. 7, so I think that's a up. That quelled a lot of my fears right there. And then Taz playing Sanji, he did a very good job. This is a different Sanji than what it normally is, but I feel like with Nami and Zoro being so serious compared to in the original, Sanji had to be more upbeat, more lively, which I actually don't mind at all. And Usopp as well. Usopp is probably one of the weaker characters. He's less annoying, I will say, when I first read One Piece, and then compared to this, Usopp is less annoying. But he's also a weaker written character. But I think if they're going to continue with Season 2, we have a lot more for Usopp coming up, so that's not big of a deal. I think Mihawk, the actor that played Mihawk, nailed it. The voice is everything you can imagine what Mihawk wanted to be. Mihawk is it. Shanks, I think people were clowning on Shanks at first just because of the teaser images or teaser trailer. But honestly, I really like Shanks. Shanks was just very solid the entire time. Other characters I can think of some highlights are Kaya, just nice. They put out a bigger role for her, which I enjoyed a lot. Zeph as well. Zeph, they put a much bigger role, way has more wisdom throughout, and then he's really good. I really like this portrayal of Zeph as well. And finally, Buggy, just a fun character. Buggy is so fun to watch. It's just a great character to watch. So I'm really happy with Buggy and the fact that already we're gonna see that he's gonna be a bigger character, as we know he is in the actual One Piece story. Now with these characters, they come the backstory, and I feel like that's what they needed to get right. They nailed the backstories generally very well, because that's the main character development that they're gonna get, and with only 8 episodes, they don't have a lot to actually build upon. So I'm glad they really got the backstories, and they nailed it pretty 1-to-1, and it really has that impact towards it. Even I think back from all the storylines, is Sanji's was always the most heartbreaking, and the actor nailed that was one of the best shot scenes besides episode 7. Besides episode 7, Zeph, seeing the shot of him with out his leg, knowing that, really sold that scene a lot, and I'm really happy with the way the backstories came out. Next up, other characters that I like. Kobe, the fact that Kobe is getting a main focus is great. We now knowing what happens later on in the One Piece story makes sense. What Kobe he's gonna become a bigger character. So I really enjoy that a lot for him. The fact that he's gonna get more screen time. They're gonna write it actually see through it, and we're gonna get that whole front cover storyline that he had. So that's very exciting. That doesn't go the same way with Garp, but I'll come back to him in a minute. But what I really liked about the One Piece live action, it is what Oda is very good at now, wasn't so good at in the beginning of the story, is the world, is keeping the world alive. Originally, it felt like we didn't see anything of the outside world until literally after Lockdown. They're actually showing scenes that, well, one is the sets they build are amazing, and they actually feel alive. You're going in there and there's people around, people going up. It doesn't feel like a dead city or dead island. and then you happen stumble upon characters, it really feels alive. Same things like doing certain changes, like in Syrup Village, having like it being a shipwright island, which is fair. That makes sense. It's cool. That gives you a solution to the Going Merry. It's not just some random rich lady that had a boat. It's like, oh, this is just an entire place that actually is shipwright. Usopp. That's why Usopp cares so much about a ship, because he's, not a shipwright, but he's an island shipwright with one of his friends who owns the entire shipwright yard, which is great. Not only that, seeing characters connected, like Buggy and Arlong being connected, having the whole storyline of Arlong, maybe it's different from the original, but I feel like it works. Having Arlong being connected so much actually makes it more emotional when we get to like the episode 7 part, and seeing how it's like, oh, this is a bigger problem. Seeing Nami's betrayal or teases of it since episode 2, it all works really well, connecting and making things lively. And another thing is the fight scenes, they're really good. Like, the thing is, they all know how to fight. So like the fight scenes are really actually solid. With the exceptions of few fight scenes, or mainly Luffy fight scenes, the rest of the fight scenes are really good. They're like, maybe not feel realistic, I wouldn't say that, but they're just well choreographed. There's not all these jump cuts everywhere that like you see like Marvel movies. It's just solid fighting. Now, with the change of story is obviously a change in tone. The change in tone, I think it works for the season, having it be more dramatic. It actually lends for a more unified story. And Nami's story is almost similar to Robin's. They took aspects of a stronger character writing, and then put it down to Nami. Nami is obviously a great character, but the original East Blue is very one island, and now it's all unified. So now you have to actually have a tone shift that actually creates a whole storyline as well. So I really appreciate some of the changes as well. I appreciate some of it. Like, obviously, it's very difficult to write a story 8 episodes and try to cover 180 chapters. It's a very difficult task to do, but they did a really good job. I like how it's more unified. Like I said, there's certain, like, you see little teasers that for us is Easter eggs, but it's actually like, it just makes things a lot more, like, it makes things a lot better, I feel. And even certain things like having Nami and Zoro introduced at the same time early on, I feel like works really well. Actually, I really like that change up from the original storyline. Like, there's certain things I will miss about maybe if they, like, with Syrup Village, for example, like Usopp, there's no big moment for Usopp. Usopp is just there cowering down while Luffy does some of the work. Like, it really, like, that was a weaker point of the actual series that I didn't appreciate, making Usopp probably the weakest character in the entire, like, in the live action at the moment. And then now, let's talk about some of the negatives, and we're going to continue on basically some of the plot point changes, but it's the whole Garp storyline. I get it. I get what they're trying to do. You needed to change, like, have different, like, storylines going on. So they have Garp, Kobe, they have Arlong, which is barely a storyline, and then you have the Straw Hats. So it's to keep the attention. They needed to write something, but not that I don't appreciate what, like, I get what they're trying to do. Not that I'm not interested in looking at a different version of Garp, but it just feels off having Garp to go there, and then at the end having that big Garp Luffy fight, where it just doesn't feel right. I like the parts with what Kobe does and what happens there, but I don't appreciate like what Garp fully does, and then it just makes things weirder. Like, especially on later seasons, how they're gonna now change the way Garp is introduced and certain story plots and revelations. That is gonna feel weird just because they had Garp introduced on so early, and it makes it a little unrealistic at times, because he cares about Luffy. He's trying to teach him a lesson, but he's a vice admiral. It makes them seem very weak. It makes the Marines seem very weak, that they're wasting time hunting a kid only just to leave, and your vice admiral couldn't get it when he's the man that, well, we know why he caught Gold Roger, but he's like one of the strongest characters in the entire series. It just doesn't look good for the Marines or Garp. The storyline feels weak at times as well. Although there's some good moments, like I like the moments with Garp and Zeph talking, but that's also part of just Zeph being such a well-written character in the actual live action. But yeah, Garp is a weak point. Luffy, I love, like, it's perfect casting. Like they like the live action owes Inaki so much credit because he made Luffy such a great character. But at times I felt watching the fight scenes, Luffy was it was weaker, a weak fight. Like some people don't like original Luffy because he's very overpowered, and then once it hits like Alabasta, he gets his comeuppance. He loses a couple times. So I appreciate the fact that I like the fact that he actually fights Arlong twice. He loses the first time, builds the emotion just for him to then win. But even during that fight scene, like with Buggy, he feels weak when he shouldn't be. With Captain Kuro, at times he felt very weak, where it was hard for him to go, and then boom, he catches him, and then all of a sudden he feels strong by knocking him out, when he could have like either have more back and forth, or just it should have been more dominating, or having Usopp take care of a bigger role. And then with Arlong, like, yeah, it really felt like, at first it felt like he was really weak. Like, cool, he caught it, he broke the sword, showing strength, but then he's trying to punch him, and then at times he's like, oh, it does nothing. And then at times it's like, oh, he's doing something, but then he's getting thrown around, running around. So it's like, it's very inaccurate, like, inconsistent, the actual fight, which I'm not too happy about. So like, that's the one part of the fight scenes that I didn't care for, but the other fight scenes are really good. And the other thing is like the comedy. Obviously, with a tonal shift, the comedy is gonna be different. One Piece is very funny story, and then they try to do like certain comedy bits. But at the times, it feels very Marvel-ish. Not all the time, but sometimes it feels very Marvel-ish, which isn't very funny. Like I said, the funniest time is, like, I think Zoro is the funniest character, having all these, like, just bouncing back a very stoic and serious character makes it very funny. But like, other than that, it's not very a funny show, or how originally is. And then the writing is good. It feels really repetitive at times. Like, they repeat themselves a lot. Like, there was a fantastic like scene where Luffy is like, why does Luffy know Nami is good? Well, it's the same reason why I knew Zoro was gonna cut him down. It's the same reason I knew Sanji was a good person, why Usopp was a good person. Just only to repeat, like, have more lines at it. Like, you don't need to repeat things. Just keep it simple. This way you fit more in it. But the main thing is, it felt very a little rushed. It felt like it should have been a 10 to 12 episode series instead of 8. Like I said, everything was really good. I think the weakest episode was episode 8 because it was very quick paced. That Arlong fight, like, it could have gone a little longer, a little bit more dramatic, but they ended it quicker. And then just to have that Garp scene at the end kind of just ruins it. I feel like if they had 10 more episodes, they could have shown more crew time as well. That's one thing I liked in the original. There's more time you see on their ship being a crew, which is really enjoyable, and they don't do it. It almost feels like they just jump one place to another. Even like there's a scene with Zoro running up the well. It's like, oh, they unnecessarily make it a dramatic, showing his flashback, making it almost unnecessary. But it's cool seeing is like this flashback is really great, but it's unnecessary for a well scene, not any other fight scene. And then all of a sudden for him to just appear behind where Luffy, it's just, they needed, I think, two to 4 more episodes to really do that, and then show more dynamic. This way you get more intensity out of, like, more dramatic and intensity out of the actual story. It wasn't, like I said, Emily Rudd put a fantastic performance, but it just needed just a little bit more, so we can get really invested. And this way you don't have to, like, not cut so, like, yeah, cut so much out of it. You can still have some things in there that would really work for it. But other than that, I mean, the live action is fantastic. I think if they're doing their job to get people into One Piece, they're going to do a fantastic job. I had conversations with a coworker that watched the live action and now is actually going to watch One Piece. So I think it's all, like, they did a fantastic job. I'm excited to see what they do in season 2, because I think if this is the first start, the first season is always the hard part. I think they're gonna do a fantastic job on season 2, so I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen. Like I said, I gotta give props to Matt Owens, all the actors, writers, producers. Like they all did a fantastic job because they made the first good live action anime adaptation there is. I know this is something different from what I normally post up. I know I put either my short form content's more edited, more scripted, but I wanted to try my hands on more off the cuff videos and more analysis off the cuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you had any suggestions, any criticisms, please let me know in the comments. I read them all the time, so I'd like to see it, your thoughts and opinions. And what are your thoughts and opinions on the new the One Piece live action? I would love to hear them below. Well, anyway, hopefully you guys stay tuned, leave a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.